It's a matter of right place, right time for this particular car. It's the all-new Kia Seltos, a small SUV the brand hopes will be the right fit for a lot of customers out there. It slots in below the Sportage, but it's not a tiny little SUV like some of the other models out there. So it doesn't really compete with the likes of the Hyundai Venue. It's more on the same playing field as the Mitsubishi ASX and Nissan Qashqai. As with those models, the pricing starts in the mid-20s and runs through to the low 40s, but we'll get to all that detail in a sec. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, share, and also hit the bell notification icon so you can stay up to date with all our latest videos. But for now, let's size up the new Kia Seltos. Now, I mentioned the Seltos is a small SUV, but it's not as small as some of the smaller SUVs in the segment, and I think its design really helps it carry off its size quite well. Although this particular model is the GT line, which is the top of the range, and it gets the full LED headlight and daytime running light treatment, which I think looks great. It's just disappointing that it's the only model that gets that high-tech look. The other models have halogen headlights and daytime running lights, which really cheapens the look if you ask me. Most small SUVs are about the same height and around the same width, but it's the length that could be the determining factor for you, especially if you live in the city, you've got to deal with tight parking spaces all the time. Now, here is the length of the Seltos, and if you're wondering, this is how it compares to a Sportage. The boot space on offer is definitely family friendly. In here, there is 433 litres of cargo capacity, which makes it one of the most generous in the segment. But that's for the models with the full-size alloy spare wheel. The base model gets a space saver, so that means the boot is even bigger in the entry-level version. Backseat space in the Seltos is very good. This seat is set for my position. I'm 6 feet tall and I have heaps of knee room. Also note that these are hard plastic kickboards on the backs of the seats so your little kids won't damage the leather or the cloth in the lower grade models. There's only one map pocket back here on the passenger side, and on the entry-level models you don't even get that, and on the entry-level models you don't get a flip-down armrest with cup holders, and on the entry-level models you don't get rear air vents or USB charging in the back. So the point is, the high-spec version gets a lot of stuff, but the lower grades miss out. But none of them miss out on space because it's good back here. As I said, lots of knee room, good headroom, good toe room. You could easily fit 3 adults across the back, which is something you can't say for all the small SUVs in this segment. And if you've got children, they'll be well catered for as well. There are ISOFIX child seat anchor points and 3 top tether points as well. Now, let's check out the front. The front seat area is a really nice place to be in the Seltos for the most part. This is the top spec version and it does feel pretty plush in here. You've got this big 10.25 inch touchscreen media system with sat nav and live mapping updates, and that is standard on the top 3 grades, but not the base model. There's other nice things in here like climate control, but it's not dual zone climate control. And if you're buying the base model Seltos or the lower grade Seltos models, you don't get soft padding on the elbow rest here, which is kind of rubbish. But otherwise, it looks and presents really nicely, including a nice digital screen in front of the driver. No matter the spec, you still get a digital speedometer, which is good. And the presentation is pretty smart. I like the look of it, I like the feel of it, but there are some elements that do cheapen it just a touch. Now, usually at this point of the video, I'd say, let's go for a drive. But this time around, I think it's important to go through the models in the Seltos range before we get to how it drives. The Seltos range kicks off with the entry-level S variant, priced attractively at just $25,990 drive away for the auto front-wheel drive model. Stepping up to the Sport model sees the addition of alloy wheels and a number of other goodies, while the price still stays under 30 grand drive away. The Sport Plus model gains a more comprehensive safety suite, which you can read all about at the CarsGuide site. It also gives buyers the choice of two-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, and the latter version gets a gruntier turbo engine too. The top spec model is the GT line, which is all-wheel drive, and it looks a treat. It is pricey though, crossing into plush mid-size SUV territory. As mentioned, you can find a full breakdown of the specs and standard equipment at the CarsGuide site. Now, let me tell you what it's like to drive. At the launch of the Seltos, I've been driving the entry-level versions and the high-spec version. So let's start with the entry models, which have that 2-litre 4-cylinder engine, which has a CVT. Now, it's the first CVT transmission, or continuously variable transmission, that we've seen from Kia in Australia. And apparently it's driven by the demand from the US market for such a transmission. And it's paired to an Atkinson cycle engine, which is designed to be a little bit more efficient. And in general terms, it's a pretty good drivetrain. There's enough power and torque to get you moving and to stay moving as well at high speed or around town. And I actually found it to be a pretty refined engine and transmission to work with. And that's a good thing. If you just want to tool around town, then it's going to be a pretty good fit for you. If you don't need all-wheel drive, that is. The other engine, which is in the Seltos I'm driving right now, is a 1.6 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder engine with a dual clutch automatic transmission. Now, the dual clutch can take a little while to learn your driving style, and it does feel a little bit doughy in stop-start traffic in the cars that I've driven on this test. Generally, it's smooth and shifts quickly, especially at higher speeds. Although at lower speeds, it does have a little bit of hesitation when you're taking off from a standstill. Hopefully that irons itself out as the car gets to learn your driving style, but we can't really speak for it at launch. And as such, it is a little bit annoying. Now, you might be wondering if there's a hybrid option or a plug-in hybrid or a diesel, and the answer is no to all of those, and there's no manual either. Apparently the market is so small that there's no point having one. And I mean, that's a good thing because it means that Kia doesn't have to do that free automatic transmission marketing thing, which we've seen for a long time. So what about the drive experience? Well, the turbocharged versions with the all-wheel drive underpinnings do feel pretty good, I have to say. There's plenty of grip, there's plenty of traction as well, and the fact that you get the more sophisticated independent rear suspension rather than the torsion beam suspension that you get in the two-wheel drive versions means that the ride does feel just a little bit more polished. Although on these bigger wheels in the high-spec model that we're driving right now, you do notice a bit of road noise and you can feel those sharp edges a little bit more. In the lower grade models with the smaller wheel package, it's a more comfortable and more comfort-focused ride. Not maybe as dynamic in terms of handling, especially through tight corners, because you don't have that all-wheel drive traction to get you through those corners quite as effectively. But for most people's needs, the front-wheel drive model is just going to be the right fit. And Kia agrees with that. About 80% of Seltos sales are expected to be the front-wheel drive model. So don't think that buying the front-wheel drive is making a mistake. I actually think it's the better version. For me, the steering could just be a little bit lighter. It is just a touch too heavy, especially when you're moving around town. When you're trying to do a parking maneuver or negotiating a roundabout, it does just feel a little bit dull and overweighted, but some people will really like that. It adds to a sporty or dynamic drive experience for some people. I'm not as much of a fan, and I particularly don't like it as much in the all-wheel drive version. But as I said, the front-wheel drive, well, it's just fine. The Kia Seltos small SUV is one of the most impressive entrants in this segment, and it's a tough fought part of the market. And for me, the pick is the Sport Plus front-wheel drive version. It just seems to have the right balance of safety equipment, stuff you'd want if you're buying a small SUV, and an attractive price tag. Tell us what you think in the comments section below. Which one of the Seltos models would you choose, or would you choose something else? Let us know, and also if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit like, hit subscribe, and hit the bell notification icon so you can stay up to date with all our latest videos.